The city was alive with noise and movement that afternoon. Cars honked impatiently at the traffic lights, buses stopped and started, and people rushed across the sidewalks, each with their own busy schedule. In the middle of all that rush, an old woman stood still. She wore a plain coat that looked too big for her thin shoulders, and her gray hair was untidy, falling over her face. Her eyes darted around nervously, as if she was searching for something but couldn't find it. At first, no one really noticed her. She blended into the crowd like another stranger on the street. But as the minutes passed, it became clear she was lost. She turned left, then right, pausing at every corner as if she had forgotten where she was supposed to go. She tried to speak to a woman in a red jacket, gently asking, "Excuse me, could you help me?" But the woman barely slowed down. She muttered something under her breath about being late and walked away without looking back. The old woman sighed and moved toward a man in a suit. He looked wealthy, carrying a shiny briefcase. She reached out a trembling hand and asked softly, "Sir, do you know how to get to?" She didn't even finish her sentence before he stepped back, frowned, and shook his head. "Sorry, can't help," he said quickly, hurrying off as if even stopping for a second was too much to ask. She tried again with a group of young people standing near a coffee shop, laughing loudly and scrolling through their phones. "Can one of you tell me where the Greenway Lane is?" she asked politely. One of the young men barely lifted his eyes. He smirked and said, "Not sure, lady," before turning back to his friends. They didn't even notice her struggling voice. The old woman's hands shook slightly as she clutched her small purse. She felt invisible. Hundreds of people were moving around her, brushing shoulders, talking, laughing, and living their lives, but not a single one of them was willing to pause for her. She looked down at her shoes, which were a little dusty from walking too long. Her lips trembled as she whispered to herself, "I just need a little help, just a little." A cold breeze swept down the street, making her pull her coat tighter. The world around her felt unkind. Everyone had somewhere to go, something to do, but she had only confusion. The more people ignored her, the smaller she felt. At one point, she sat on a bench near a bus stop, hoping maybe someone kind would sit beside her and ask if she was okay. A few people did sit next to her, but none of them spoke to her. A young mother kept her child close, almost pulling the little boy away when the old woman smiled gently at him. The mother's eyes showed suspicion, not kindness. An older man, reading his newspaper, didn't even glance at her once. The old woman closed her eyes for a moment, trying to hold back the tears. She remembered the times when she was younger, when she would help others who looked lost. Is this what the world has become? She thought sadly. So busy, so rushed, so blind to those who need a hand. Meanwhile, the city kept moving. People passed her by like she wasn't even there. Some glanced at her with pity, but quickly turned their heads, afraid to get involved. Others assumed she was just another poor soul wandering the streets. Nobody saw her for who she really was. Minutes turned into an hour. Her feet ached from walking, and her voice grew weaker from asking. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the situation. For all her life, she had believed kindness still lived in people. But in that busy street, kindness seemed to have disappeared completely. And then, something small but powerful happened. A teenage boy, maybe 16 or 17 years old, walked slowly down the sidewalk. He wasn't dressed in expensive clothes, just a simple t-shirt, jeans, and a school backpack hanging from one shoulder. His skin was dark, and his sneakers looked a little worn out, showing he probably didn't come from wealth. But his eyes, curious and thoughtful, noticed what no one else seemed to see. He saw the old woman sitting on the bench, her face filled with worry, her hands clutching her purse tightly. While others walked past without a second glance, he stopped. For a moment, he just stood there, watching her. Something in his heart told him she needed help. He stepped closer and said gently, "Ma'am, are you okay?" His voice was calm and respectful. The old woman looked up, surprised that someone had finally spoken to her with kindness. Her lips trembled as she whispered, I think I'm lost. I don't know how to get back home. Nobody will help me." The boy smiled softly, not mocking, not suspicious. Just a real smile. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll help you. Where do you need to go?" For the first time all day, the old woman felt seen. She looked into the boy's eyes and saw sincerity. It almost made her cry, not from sadness, but from relief. Out of hundreds of people, one teenager, a stranger, had paused and cared enough to ask. The boy reached out his hand, not hesitating. "Come on, I'll walk with you. We'll figure it out together." She hesitated at first. Could she really trust him? But something in his tone, something in his kindness, gave her courage. Slowly, she placed her trembling hand into his. And just like that, in the middle of a city full of people who ignored her, the old woman was no longer alone. What no one around them knew was that this small act of kindness would soon lead to a discovery that would shock everyone: the truth about who the old woman really was. But in that moment, for her, it didn't matter. All that mattered was that someone finally cared. The old woman held the boy's hand tightly as they started walking down the busy street together. The crowd still moved around them, rushing in every direction, but for the first time that day, she didn't feel invisible. The boy's grip was firm yet gentle, and it gave her a sense of comfort she had been missing for hours. He didn't look annoyed, and he wasn't in a hurry to let go. He simply walked beside her, as if helping her was the most natural thing to do. "What's your name, ma'am?" the boy asked kindly, glancing at her to make sure she was okay. "My name is Margaret," she said softly. Her voice shook a little, partly from exhaustion and partly from emotion. "That's a nice name," the boy said with a smile. "My name is Jamal." "Don't worry, Margaret. I'll stay with you until you're safe." Hearing those words made her eyes water. She squeezed his hand a little tighter and whispered, "Thank you, Jamal. You're the first person today who has stopped to help me." Jamal frowned slightly, confused. "Really? No one else helped?" She shook her head. "Not a single person. They all walked past me. Some didn't even look at me." Jamal shook his head, almost in disbelief. "That's not right. My grandma always tells me, if someone needs help, you stop. Even if you're busy. That's just what people should do." Margaret smiled faintly. "Your grandmother raised you well." As they continued walking, Jamal asked her questions to figure out where she needed to go. "Do you remember your street name? Or maybe a building near your home?" Margaret paused, thinking hard. Her memory felt foggy, and for a moment she couldn't find the right words. "There was a park near my house. With tall oak trees and a fountain. And I remember a big iron gate at the entrance." Jamal nodded, listening carefully. "Okay, a park with a fountain and iron gates. That should be easy to find. We can ask around." They walked past a row of shops. The smell of fresh bread from a bakery filled the air, and children ran by laughing as they carried ice cream cones. People still hurried past Margaret and Jamal, but now she didn't care. She had someone by her side. At one point, Jamal led her to a small cafe. "Let's sit down for a moment," he said. "You look tired. We'll figure out the directions from here." Margaret hesitated. She didn't want to trouble him, but her legs ached badly. She agreed and sat at one of the outdoor tables. Jamal went inside and came back with a cup of warm tea and a small sandwich. "Here," he said, placing them in front of her. "I didn't know what you liked, but you need something to eat." Margaret's eyes softened. You didn't have to buy me this. I wanted to, Jamal replied. It's no big deal. She took a sip of the tea, and warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't just the drink, it was the kindness behind it that touched her heart. You're a good boy, she said softly. Jamal shrugged. I just think everyone deserves kindness. My mom works hard, and sometimes people don't treat her well because she doesn't have a fancy job. I know how it feels when people look at you like you're less important. That's why I couldn't just walk past you. Margaret listened carefully. She realized this boy had more wisdom than many adults she knew. His words reminded her of something she had once believed in: helping people no matter who they were. After finishing her tea, she felt a little stronger. Together, they asked a cafe worker about the park with oak trees and an iron gate. The worker nodded. Yes, Greenway Park. It's a 10-minute walk from here, just down the road. Margaret's eyes lit up. Yes. That must be it. Jamal grinned. See? We're getting closer. Let's go. As they walked, Jamal kept talking to her so she wouldn't feel anxious. He told her about his school, how he liked basketball, and how he dreamed of becoming an engineer one day. Margaret listened with interest, nodding and smiling. She was impressed by his ambition and his gentle spirit. You'll do well, Jamal, she said with certainty. You have a good heart, and that will take you far. He laughed lightly. I hope so. Sometimes it feels like the world only notices people with money or power. But I think if you work hard and treat people right, good things will happen. Margaret looked at him with a thoughtful expression. He had no idea who she really was or how much power and wealth she had. To him, she was just an old woman in need of help. That made his kindness even more genuine. Soon, they reached the park. Margaret's face brightened as she recognized the tall oak trees and the iron gates. Yes, this is it. I live not far from here. Jamal smiled. Great. We're almost there. Can you remember which way to go from here? She closed her eyes for a moment, letting her memory guide her. Yes. I think it's the road past the fountain. My home should be at the end. They walked slowly, Margaret leaning on Jamal's arm for support. People in the park noticed them. Some gave curious looks, but Jamal didn't care. He focused only on helping her. Finally, they reached a large property hidden behind tall hedges and a wide gate. Margaret stopped, her heart beating faster. This was it, her home. Relief flooded her as she realized she had made it back safely. Jamal looked up at the mansion beyond the gate, his eyes widening. Wow, you live here. Margaret smiled softly, a little shy. Yes, Jamal. This is my home. Before she could say more, the gates opened and two security guards rushed out. Their eyes widened in shock as they saw Margaret standing there with a teenager. One of them exclaimed, Mrs. Hamilton. We've been searching everywhere for you. Jamal blinked in surprise. Mrs. Hamilton. Margaret nodded gently. Yes. I didn't tell you before. My full name is Margaret Hamilton. The guards immediately tried to guide her inside, but Margaret stopped them. She turned to Jamal, holding his hand tightly once more. This boy found me when no one else would. He took my hand when the whole world ignored me. The guards looked stunned, and Jamal stood frozen, trying to process what was happening. He had no idea the woman he helped was someone important. Margaret's eyes shone with gratitude. She looked at Jamal and whispered, You didn't know who I was, yet you chose kindness. That means more to me than anything in this house. In that moment, Jamal realized the true power of his small action. What had started as a simple decision to stop and help a stranger was about to change his life in ways he couldn't imagine. Margaret led Jamal through the grand gates of her property, her hand still holding his firmly. The air was filled with the soft rustle of leaves, and the scent of fresh flowers from the garden surrounded them. The security guard stepped back respectfully, sensing that this moment was personal, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond between the old woman and the young boy who had helped her. Jamal felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. He had never been inside a place so large, so quiet, and so beautiful. Every corner of the property spoke of wealth, yet the warmth he felt from Margaret made it feel more like a home than a mansion. As they walked along the marble pathway, Margaret spoke softly, "Jamal, I want you to know something. Most people judge others too quickly. They see an old woman, frail and lost, and they ignore her. They never take the time to see the person inside. But you saw me, not as someone old or weak, but as someone who needed help. That is rare." Jamal looked at her with wide eyes. "I didn't even know who you were. I just wanted to help." "That's exactly why it mattered," Margaret said, smiling. "Kindness given without expectation is the truest kind of kindness. And because of you, Jamal, I want to do something that might change your life." Jamal's heart skipped a beat. He felt a mix of curiosity and disbelief. "Me? How?" Margaret paused and looked at him with a gentle seriousness. "You don't know who I am, but you are about to find out. I am Margaret Hamilton. I have spent my life building businesses, investing, and creating opportunities. I am a billionaire." Jamal blinked rapidly, trying to process the words. A billionaire? But, you're just, you, the lady I found lost." "Yes," she said softly. "I wanted to live quietly, to be alone sometimes. But even someone like me can get lost, and even someone like me can need help. Today, you gave me that help when no one else would. That's why I want you to come inside and meet the rest of the family." Jamal's mind raced. He had never imagined that a simple act of helping someone would bring him into the life of a billionaire. He felt nervous, unsure of what to say or how to react. I I don't know what to say," he stammered. "Then don't say anything," Margaret said kindly. "Just walk with me. That will be enough." They entered the mansion through a huge wooden door carved with intricate designs. The inside was breathtaking. Expensive paintings adorned the walls, and the polished floors reflected the soft light from crystal chandeliers. Jamal's eyes wandered around in awe, but Margaret kept her focus on him. She could see his humility, his genuine nature, and she felt grateful that someone so kind had crossed her path. As they walked through the hall, Margaret explained more about her life. "I built my wealth through hard work, careful decisions, and a little luck. But wealth is not the most important thing. It is people who matter. Helping someone, caring for someone, that is the real value of life." Jamal nodded, listening carefully. "I understand. It's just, sometimes, people only see money, or things they can get from someone. They don't see the person." Margaret smiled. "Exactly. That is why your actions meant so much to me. You didn't see what you could get from me. You just saw me, a person who needed help." Soon, they arrived at a large sitting room. A few family members and staff were waiting inside, and they looked astonished when they saw Jamal. Margaret introduced him gently, "This is Jamal. He helped me when I was lost and scared. He didn't know who I was, yet he stayed with me. I want you all to meet him properly." The room went quiet. The family and staff looked at Jamal with a mix of curiosity and admiration. Some whispered among themselves, amazed that a young boy could have such courage and kindness. Jamal felt nervous under their gaze, but Margaret gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. After a moment, she asked Jamal to sit on a comfortable sofa. "You've done something important today, Jamal. It may seem small to you, but it is huge in life. You didn't just help me, you reminded me of what truly matters." Jamal shifted in his seat, still processing everything. I didn't do anything special. I just saw someone who needed help. You see? Margaret said warmly. That is special. Most people walk past, pretending not to notice. You noticed, and you acted. That is more important than money, power, or fame. The family, now gathered around, looked at Jamal with respect. Margaret continued, because of your actions, I want to offer you an opportunity. I want to help you get an education, the kind that can shape your future. I want you to have chances that many young people dream about but never receive. Jamal's eyes widened, and he felt his chest tighten. You would do that for me? Yes, Margaret said firmly. Kindness like yours should be rewarded. And more than that, I want to show you that helping others can open doors in life, sometimes in ways you never expect. He could hardly believe it. A billionaire was offering him a chance at a brighter future simply because he had shown compassion. Jamal thought about his family, the struggles they faced, and the dreams he had always quietly held. For the first time, those dreams felt real, tangible. Margaret guided him to a large window overlooking the garden. Look at that, Jamal. Everything you see here was built over many years. But no matter what I have, none of it compares to a single act of kindness. That act can change someone's life, even mine. Jamal looked out, taking in the beauty of the gardens, the fountains, and the sparkling water reflecting the sunlight. He felt a sense of hope and determination rising inside him. I want to help people too. Just like I helped you. Margaret's eyes sparkled with pride. That is exactly why I chose to meet you today. You have a rare heart. Keep it that way, no matter what happens in life. And remember, helping someone doesn't always need money or status, it only needs courage and a willingness to care. The rest of the afternoon passed with laughter, conversation, and warmth. Margaret shared stories from her life, the challenges she had faced in building her empire, and the lessons she had learned. Jamal shared his own experiences, talking about school, his friends, and his dreams. Every word he spoke was listened to with care and respect. By the time the sun began to set, Jamal felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. He realized that his small act of helping someone lost had opened a door to a world he never imagined. More importantly, he had shown Margaret Hamilton that kindness and courage still existed in the world, even in the smallest of hearts. Before he left, Margaret handed him a small card. This is my contact. I want you to reach out to me whenever you need guidance, advice, or help. And remember, Jamal, you are capable of more than you know. Never forget the power of a kind heart. Jamal held the card tightly, his mind racing. He knew this was the beginning of something big, not just in terms of opportunities but in the lessons he had learned about humanity, kindness, and courage. As he stepped out of the mansion and back into the evening air, he felt different, stronger, more confident, and more certain that good actions, no matter how small, could change lives. And for Margaret Hamilton, the old woman who had felt invisible all day, she felt a renewed faith in people, reminded that there were still kind souls willing to stop, look, and help when it mattered the most. That night, both Margaret and Jamal went to bed with hearts full of hope. One had been reminded of the power of genuine kindness, and the other had been given a chance to dream bigger than he ever had before. And all of it had started with a simple act, taking the hand of someone who was lost, offering help without expecting anything in return, and believing in the goodness of the world. Jamal couldn't sleep that night. His mind kept thinking about the events of the day, how he had helped a lost old woman, how she had held his hand, and how she had revealed herself as Margaret Hamilton, a billionaire. The world he had glimpsed seemed magical and impossible, yet it was real. As he lay on his small bed, he held the card she had given him tightly, feeling a mix of excitement, pride, and nervousness. This card was not just a piece of paper, it was a symbol of opportunity, hope, and trust. The next morning, Jamal woke up early, feeling a determination he had never felt before. He knew that meeting Margaret was not a coincidence. It had changed something inside him. He washed his face, put on his school uniform, and headed to school with a strange feeling of purpose. On the way, he thought about what she had said, that kindness without expectation was rare and powerful. That idea stayed with him like a warm light guiding him through the day. At school, things seemed different. Even though his classmates treated him the same as before, he walked with a quiet confidence. In the classroom, he answered questions with more certainty, and when a friend dropped their books, he was quick to help, smiling as he remembered Margaret's words. It felt natural, like kindness had become a part of who he was. The small gestures he made now had a new meaning. After school, Jamal couldn't wait to reach home. He knew that soon, Margaret would be contacting him, and he wanted to be ready for whatever she had planned. Sure enough, by mid-afternoon, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Margaret herself. She wrote, "Jamal, I am proud of you. Tomorrow, I would like to meet you again. There is something important I want to show you. Please come prepared and bring an open heart." Jamal's hands trembled as he read the message. He felt honored and slightly nervous. The next day, Jamal arrived at Margaret's mansion, dressed neatly and carrying a small notebook. He was curious, wondering what she wanted to show him. When he entered, Margaret greeted him with a warm smile. "Jamal, come in. Today, I want to show you something that I hope will inspire you to dream big. But first, let's have breakfast." The breakfast room was bright and welcoming, filled with the aroma of fresh bread, fruit, and coffee. Margaret had prepared a simple yet delicious meal, understanding that comfort and warmth were more important than extravagance. As they ate, she talked about her life, not about her money, but about her challenges, failures, and the lessons she had learned. Jamal listened carefully, amazed that someone so successful had once faced struggles just like anyone else. After breakfast, Margaret led Jamal to a room filled with books, computers, and drawings. It was a place where ideas seemed to live and grow. "Jamal," she said, "this is my learning room. Here, I plan, dream, and create. I want you to see what is possible when you dedicate yourself to learning and growth." She gestured to the shelves filled with books on science, business, history, and art. "Knowledge is a treasure that nobody can take away from you. And today, I want to give you access to it all." Jamal's eyes widened. He had never seen so many books and tools in one place. Margaret handed him a tablet with access to educational programs, online courses, and virtual libraries. "These resources can help you learn anything you want," she said. "From mathematics to writing, from science to music. You have the chance to explore your interests and grow your talents." Over the next few hours, Margaret guided Jamal through different learning programs. She showed him how to use the tablet to read books, watch educational videos, and even practice coding. Jamal was amazed. Everything seemed new, exciting, and full of possibilities. He realized that learning didn't have to be boring or difficult, it could be an adventure, just like helping someone lost had been an adventure. As the day continued, Margaret shared more lessons about life. She told Jamal that wealth and success were not only about money, they were about creating value, helping others, and living with integrity. She explained that the real power of success was the ability to make a positive difference in people's lives. Jamal listened intently, feeling that these words were not just lessons, but a roadmap for the life he wanted to live. In the afternoon, Margaret took Jamal to the garden. The sun was bright, and the flowers bloomed in a variety of colors. They walked slowly along the paths, talking about dreams and goals. "Jamal," Margaret said, "I want you to think about what you truly want in life. Don't worry about what others expect or say. Focus on what makes you happy and what allows you to help others." Jamal thought carefully. He realized that he had always wanted to study science, to understand how things worked and maybe even invent something that could help people. But he had never thought it was possible for him. Now, with Margaret's guidance and resources, it felt possible. His heart filled with hope, and he smiled for the first time that day, feeling a sense of clarity he had never known. As evening approached, Margaret invited Jamal to sit by the fountain. The water sparkled in the setting sun, creating a peaceful and magical atmosphere. "Jamal," she said, "tomorrow, I will introduce you to a few people who can mentor you. They are experts in areas you are interested in. You will see that when someone believes in you, doors open that you never imagined. But the most important thing is to keep your heart kind and your mind open. That is the key to true success." Jamal nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "Thank you, Margaret. I will try my best. I want to learn and also help others, just like you said." Margaret reached out and held his hand again. "I know you will, Jamal. I can see it in you. You have a rare spirit, and it is my honor to guide you. Remember, opportunities come to those who are ready, who are willing to learn, and who care for others. Today is just the beginning of a wonderful journey." The next morning, Jamal was filled with anticipation. He dressed neatly and prepared himself to meet the mentors Margaret had promised. When he arrived at the mansion, he was greeted by a small group of people who welcomed him warmly. They were friendly, patient, and genuinely interested in his thoughts and ideas. Margaret introduced Jamal to each one, explaining his talents and the potential she saw in him. Over the next few hours, Jamal engaged in conversations with the mentors, asking questions, exploring ideas, and absorbing knowledge. He learned about science, technology, business, and even creative thinking. Each conversation opened his mind to new possibilities, and he began to see that the world was much bigger than he had imagined. More importantly, he realized that his dreams could become reality with effort, learning, and kindness. By the end of the day, Jamal felt exhausted but exhilarated. He had learned so much, not only about the subjects he loved but also about life, people, and the value of guidance and mentorship. Margaret smiled as she watched him leave, knowing that this young boy was on a path that could lead to greatness. She felt proud that she could be a part of his journey, just as he had been a part of hers by reminding her of the importance of human kindness. That night, as Jamal lay in bed, he reflected on everything he had experienced. He realized that a single act of helping someone could change lives in unexpected ways. Margaret had shown him that the world was full of opportunities, and that knowledge, kindness, and courage were the most valuable tools anyone could have. For the first time, Jamal felt that his future was in his hands, and that he had the power to shape it with his actions and heart. He knew that he had come a long way from the boy who had simply walked home after school. Now, he was on a journey of learning, growth, and hope. And all of it had started with a simple decision, to help an old woman who was lost, to hold her hand, and to believe in the goodness of people. Jamal woke up that morning with a strange excitement in his chest. Today felt different from any other day. He had been learning so much at Margaret's mansion, meeting inspiring people, and discovering a world full of possibilities. But today, he sensed something bigger was about to happen. He quickly got ready, put on his neatest clothes, and grabbed the notebook Margaret had given him. Each page of the notebook was filled with notes, ideas, and dreams. It felt like a treasure chest, a collection of his growing knowledge and hopes. When Jamal arrived at the mansion, Margaret was waiting for him by the entrance. She smiled warmly, her eyes twinkling with a sense of mystery. "Good morning, Jamal," she said. "Today is a very special day. I want you to see what can happen when someone believes in you and gives you the tools to grow. Are you ready?" Jamal nodded eagerly, feeling a mixture of curiosity and excitement. Margaret led him to a large room that Jamal had never seen before. The room was bright and filled with windows that looked out onto the garden, letting in sunlight that danced across the floor. In the center of the room were several tables, computers, and different kinds of creative tools: paint, clay, building blocks, and even small robotic kits. "This," Margaret said, "is a place where ideas come to life. I want you to explore, create, and learn in any way you wish. Today, you will see the power of imagination and action together." Jamal could hardly believe his eyes. Everything seemed magical. He walked slowly, touching the items on the tables, feeling a spark of curiosity in his fingers. Margaret watched him with a quiet smile, understanding that this young boy had a hunger for knowledge that was rare. "Jamal," she said softly, "remember, imagination without action is like a seed without water. Ideas need effort to grow. Today, I want you to try something new, something you've never done before." Jamal thought for a moment. He had always loved machines and how things worked. He noticed a small robotic kit in the corner. Carefully, he picked it up and began to follow the instructions. Piece by piece, he assembled the parts, feeling his heart beat faster with each step. Margaret sat nearby, observing silently, letting him discover on his own while being ready to guide if needed. Hours passed as Jamal worked on the robot. Sometimes he struggled, unsure how pieces fit together. But he didn't give up. He remembered Margaret's words about patience, learning, and persistence. Finally, after much effort, the robot moved. Its little wheels rolled across the table, its tiny arms waved, and a small light blinked on its head. Jamal's eyes shone with joy, a wide smile spreading across his face. He had built something from nothing, guided only by curiosity, effort, and courage. Margaret clapped her hands softly. "Well done, Jamal," she said. "This is not just a robot. It is a symbol of what you can achieve when you put your mind and heart into something. You see, the world rewards those who try, who learn, and who never give up." Jamal felt a deep sense of pride. For the first time, he truly believed that he could accomplish anything he set his mind to. After a short break, Margaret asked Jamal to sit with her at a table filled with papers, pens, and more notebooks. "Now, I want you to think about your future," she said. "Not just dreams, but goals. What do you want to do in the next year? In 5 years? 10 years? Write them down. Don't worry about limits. Write what you truly wish to achieve." Jamal opened his notebook and began to write. He wrote about becoming an engineer, inventing machines to help people, learning more about science, and even teaching others one day. He wrote about helping children like himself, who might not have access to books, computers, or mentors. He realized that his dreams were not just about him, they were about making a difference. Margaret watched him silently, feeling a sense of fulfillment. She had built businesses, created wealth, and experienced many successes, but seeing a young mind ignite with purpose brought her more joy than anything money could buy. She reached over and placed her hand on his notebook. "Jamal, these are wonderful goals. But remember, the most important thing is to take the first step. Even small steps matter. And sometimes, life will test your patience, but you must keep moving forward." The afternoon arrived, and Margaret suggested they go outside into the garden. The sun was warm, the flowers colorful, and the air smelled fresh. They walked along the winding paths, talking quietly about life, dreams, and challenges. Jamal shared his thoughts, his fears, and his hopes. Margaret listened patiently, offering advice without pressure, allowing him to discover his own solutions. After some time, they reached a bench near a small pond. Margaret handed Jamal a small envelope. "Open it," she said. Inside was a certificate recognizing his dedication, curiosity, and courage. Alongside it was a small letter. Jamal read it aloud. "Dear Jamal, the world is full of opportunities for those who are ready. Keep learning, keep helping others, and never forget the power of kindness. You have a bright future ahead. With pride, Margaret Hamilton. Jamal's eyes filled with tears. He felt seen, valued, and inspired. This simple gesture meant more to him than any treasure. It was proof that someone believed in him, that he had worth and potential. He realized that helping Margaret that day when she was lost had opened doors he could never have imagined. As evening approached, Margaret invited Jamal to join her for a quiet tea in the living room. They sat together, sipping warm tea, talking softly about the day. Jamal felt a sense of calm and happiness that he had never known. He realized that life was not just about school or survival, it was about growth, kindness, and courage. Helping someone, learning from someone, and believing in oneself could create a ripple effect far beyond imagination. Before leaving, Margaret took Jamal's hand once more. "Remember, Jamal," she said, "opportunity is everywhere. But the greatest opportunities come to those who help others, stay kind, and never give up. Today, you have learned more than knowledge. You have learned the power of heart and effort combined." Jamal nodded, feeling a deep sense of understanding. He knew that his life had changed forever. He thanked Margaret for her guidance, for her belief in him, and for showing him a world of possibilities. As he walked home that evening, he thought about his family, his friends, and his neighborhood. He realized that he could bring a piece of this inspiration back to everyone around him, not with money, but with kindness, encouragement, and effort. The next days and weeks were filled with action. Jamal continued to learn with the resources Margaret had given him. He experimented with small inventions, read books, and explored new ideas. At school, he shared knowledge with his friends, helping them with studies and small projects. His kindness and enthusiasm began to inspire others, just as Margaret had inspired him. One afternoon, Margaret visited Jamal's school to see his progress. The students were amazed to meet her, but more than that, they were inspired by Jamal's achievements. Margaret praised his courage, curiosity, and dedication, reminding everyone that greatness was possible when effort and kindness met opportunity. Jamal felt proud but humble, understanding that his journey was just beginning. Months later, Jamal looked back on the day he had helped the lost old woman. He smiled, remembering how a simple act of kindness had changed his life forever. He had learned that no matter how small an action seemed, it could lead to incredible outcomes. He had discovered that wealth, knowledge, and success were important, but the true treasures were courage, kindness, and determination. And so, Jamal's life continued, filled with learning, growth, and generosity. He never forgot Margaret's lessons, and he made sure to help others whenever he could. The boy who once walked home alone after school had become a young man with dreams, purpose, and a heart full of hope. All because he had taken a hand, held it gently, and stepped into a world of possibilities. From that day forward, Jamal understood a powerful truth: sometimes, the smallest gestures of kindness can open the largest doors, and helping others can create a chain of hope that changes lives in ways nobody can imagine. His journey had just begun, and he was ready to meet it with courage, curiosity, and a heart full of compassion.